Boy, do I have a great one on today. I'm always humbled when I get special guests like this, but this man is not just a guest. He's really family to me. One of the most dynamic athletes and football players to ever come out of Hudson County, which is in Jersey City, for those who don't know that, and has moved on to mold and shape young men and women in a totally different, take them to totally different levels in their careers. I have on none other than Dr. Latoro Yates, and I'm honored and privileged to have you on my show, sir.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. You're a big brother to me, and I will say everything that we talk about. And you always get embarrassed when I say this, but I've been watching your game and utilizing your game in the way I built my career since I was very young. So salute to you and thank you.
Oh man, thank you, thank you, thank you. Listen, I I can't even get into the other part until we start talking about the athletic part.
Okay.
So I got to go back to, you were one of the most, first off, hardest hitting players I've ever seen. And I'm so glad that we didn't have to play against each other, because I'm not sure if I'd have wanted any of that smoke, bro.
I'd had
But,
to catch you, man. I would have had to catch you.
but I want to go back to that point, the athletic part of it. So,
Yes.
how did you start, and what drove you to be the type of player that you were on the field? Because you was, man, listen, ferocious.
Yes. So I graduated Lincoln High School in 1989. I had some scholarship offers on the table, multiple, but did not sign by the national signing date, and those offers went away very quickly. So I found myself not having a school to go to, and through a connection, I ended up as a preferred walk-on at Virginia State University. So understand something. I was 16 years old my senior year, I turned 17, and by the end of the year. So I was a 16-year-old, 17-year-old making these lifelong decisions and not really having enough guidance in the home to help me on that path. So in going to Virginia State, I would say I wasn't physically, mentally, or spiritually ready for what I was about to experience. I went down there by my third year, ended my second year actually. I earned a scholarship there and just struggling on and off the field. By the time I was completing my junior year, started and doing well, um, I had a choice to come home, and part of it wasn't my choice. And I came home. And when I came home, it was humbling because it was kids in my neighborhood that I didn't realize were watching my every step. So when I came home and I had to explain to them why I was home and what were the decisions that led to me coming home, that was a part that helped me to start to sober up and mature off the field. So when I transferred to St. Peter's College, now St. Peter's University, I was fueled not only because I was maturing, but it was also I was on a mission because I realized I was fighting and playing beyond myself. So by the time you and I connected at St. Peter's College, I was a different animal because I was able to have the basic necessities. And I say this and I'm earnest: food, water, and shelter wasn't an issue. And by having those things taken care of, I could really focus on being an athlete. And once I got those things taken care of and I hit the weight room and I started really honing my craft, when I got on the field, it was on. And my 2 years at St. Peter's, I was able to accomplish things in 2 years that ended with me entering the Hall of Fame in 2019.
And I was honored, and thank you again for me being there and inviting me to that induction, man. That was something special. That was something special. The interesting thing about that is, so I'm going to pivot real quick into the educational journey, because
Yes.
I guess the question would be, because of the driven nature and spirit as an athlete, as a successful athlete, did that also help you in the educational realm? Because where you are now, it's unbelievable.
Well, it did, because one of the things I learned in dominating on the football field was that I equally could dominate inside the classroom. And transferring to St. Peter's, what it gave me was an opportunity and exposure to things like theology and philosophy. And I fell in love in those classes because I always loved those things. But growing up in Jersey City, and I'm talking circa 1985, not Jersey City today, it was a different place. So to walk around spouting Play-Doh back in those days wasn't it. So when I found this place, I fell in love and I was able to truly show who I was. And I learned these words from a soliloquy from Hamlet that stuck with me all these years. Is to thy own self be true. And when I started to really understand that, I took that with me in the classroom. And when I learned success in the classroom and how to be successful in the classroom, what I wanted to do is make sure I go back to my community and shout to the rafters. And that's really what I was doing. I was connecting to something that actually started when I was very young. I started a work to play program at the Salvation Army when I was 14 years old. And the
Wow.
program was you get out of school, you go to the Sal, you go downstairs, you do your homework, you get a snack, then you go upstairs, you play basketball for a couple hours, and then around 8 o'clock, you open the door, and we all ran across the street into the house into our different homes. So I had always had this giving spirit about education, and then I went to college, and I went to say it was just unleashed. And then once I finished a degree in accounting and a degree in management, I did a double MBA program. It was MBA in Masters in Information Systems. Then I did a PhD program in higher educational leadership management and policy at Seton Hall University. And I just completed an executive diversity, equity, and inclusion certificate program at Rowan University. So education has become my life. And what I want to do, big brother, is simply this. I want to help young people make slightly better decisions than I did at different ages, the different age intervals. So I have to do that in a way, especially the group I want to go after, or the group that's like us when we grew up. And like us mean growing up in a lower socioeconomic stratum, growing up in, for me personally, in an impoverished background. I was in a single parent home. My father was murdered when I was 15 months old. So my two older brothers, one is 7 years older than me, and one is 5 years older than me. Those were my fathers at a very young age. So what I wanted to do is to be able to help fill in some gaps for some of that young group that's going up. And the way to do that is to have somebody who can speak to them in a tribal lens, but also show them another lens because they know the tribal stuff, they know the hood stuff, they know the inner city stuff. But the thing they get from me is how do you transition from being the person who's on the path and starting to the person on the other end who's the doctor with the bow tie. So that's what I try to do is fill that gap for them.
Wow. Listen, man, I always say this when people say that's what I try to do. When you're doing, you're not trying, and you are doing it, brother. An excellent job of it, which is funny. Once again, it's a great segue into pivoting with this particular question.
Yes.
So, how do you tie the importance of education in sports into that conversation when you're talking to these athletes, these student athletes, and sometimes they don't understand it's more so the reverse for them. It's more so
Yeah.
athlete student. They don't understand the importance of the educational component. How do you tie that together?
So one of the things I used to I used to truly think that playing ball was the way for me to help my family. I had the dream like everyone else who ever picked up a ball wanted to play professional. But I didn't have a love for playing ball in a way that I know of some people who have made it to those leagues. And that love was I enjoyed doing it. I was exceptional at doing it, but it wasn't the love that was in my heart for it. So when I finished playing my last game and you actually helped me on some opportunities to play in a professional ranks that did not work out for me, at some point I had to stop chasing that dream and create a new dream. And that new dream was through education. I started to realize the benefits of what education can do for me and networking can do for me. And from utilizing that prowess or utilizing that networking from the days I played to create opportunities for me as I built my life out. So when I talk to younger athletes, that's what I'm doing. I'm talking to them in the here and now, but I'm also talking to them about that transition point that they're going to need to make, some earlier than later, to get to what their ultimate goal is. And I think in life, what I wanted to do in my family, as far as making it to the league, if you will, I am doing that now through education. I have a niece that graduated in 3 years and finished a law track and graduated North Carolina A&T in 3 years, and now her second year law school at Howard University. I have another niece who finished her master's degree and undergrad. I have another, like, so through one generation, going to college is regular in my family now. That's not even a big deal. It's what you're supposed to do. And what that's gonna do for future generations in my family is equal or greater than if I would have made it to the league.
Wow. And I always say, you know what, you've probably heard me say this a million and one times. Life is all about perspective and inspiring positive change in the life of others. And
100.
that's what I'm talking about. And that's exactly what you're doing. And it's amazing because to see you where you are now, I know already that others are inspired because I know I always tell you how proud and how just how humble I am. It's a beautiful thing to see. So I know you're taking this to that level. Now, you and I always talk whenever we get a chance to get on and just chit chat. I know your schedule is
Yes.
real and busy.
Yes.
What do you think about the current state and the culture of college football right now, and just sports in general, with this new the whole face of NIL? You know that
Hmm.
name, like the name, image, and likeness deals, man. What do you
Yes.
think about that?
So think about this, and I think you can explain it even better than me when I say this. Do you remember that shirt? And I'm sure you had it, and it said "Property of West Virginia." Remember that shirt?
Absolutely.
That meant something. That meant that during that time you were there as on an athletic scholarship.
Right.
They had control of from the moment you woke up and to the time that you went to bed, and all the things that you gave to that institution, and you received it back and then some. But for many of us, we don't get the opportunity to play at an institution like the University of West Virginia, right? So for what the I have first of all, I have nothing but positive things to say about NIL. The reason why is because it creates an opportunity for folks to help change their life in ways that, let alone making it to a D1 um, Power Five school, but then taking it from there and making it to the next level, to the NFL. So it's creating opportunities for generational wealth for young
Right.
people, and many of them would never get that opportunity if they have a major injury. Will never get that opportunity if they make a silly mistake like I made at Virginia State that ended up with me having to leave there. Many of them will never get that opportunity to reclaim what they were possibly on track to make. So I think that it's a great opportunity for students. What I will say is that there is a need for financial literacy for a lot of
Right.
these young folks who are now able to earn money off of their NIL, but then also about taxes, because there is a tax implication to making
Hmm.
money in this way. And then also, I think that anytime something new pops up, there's an arena for seediness around it. And you can already see this years and years and years ago, an element of it with like AAU basketball. And think about how it got to a point where you would have some students won't even play for their local high school team anymore. Their
Right.
AAU team became their team. So I do think that there's ways that we have to better protect these young people, because some of them will be making these life altering decisions, and making sure that they get the proper representation when they have contracts, reviewing contracts, and making sure of these decisions that they're making. And many of them, again, will start to make these decisions at 17, 18, 19 years old. So I do believe that there's the need for financial literacy and helping in that way, but creating an opportunity for many people to have a chance at building a better life for them beyond just what that scholarship could mean. I support it 100%.
Oh, no doubt. I was telling someone this not too long ago. They knew my background as a former sports agent for 10 years. And they were asking me questions about, as you just stated, the contractual literacy part of it,
Yeah.
which also ties into the financial literacy part of it, and just dollars and cents and numbers, right? And they didn't understand. They would ask me, well, make it make sense. You know what I mean? I went from the contracts of these Power Five TV deals, where if you look at certain contracts, like let's say, let's
Big
say
10?
let's say the SEC or the Big Ten,
Ooh,
the TV contracts, those are $1 billion contracts. So
100%.
these universities are eating off of that money. So now, when you tie in NIL deals for student athletes, there's a reason why I've always felt like they should get something other than the scholarship, because the scholarship monies and those things, the minute you sell out one game, the university is fine. From a business standpoint, university is fine. So
Yes.
what you just stated with the financial literacy part of it, that is so important because you're 100% right. If you don't tie that element in, these kids will now make decisions without being educated. And I don't care how much money you give someone, if they're not educated and they don't understand financial literacy, that money is gone. It's as good as gone. So
100%.
speaking to that, even where you are now in the universities and the different things that you're doing, how do you sit a student down when they come and they ask a question of you and they may not be well versed?
Hmm.
What's the first approach that you take with that?
Interesting. So I spoke at County Prep High School, is a local high school in Jersey City, and they have an amazing music production studio. You have to go visit this school. It was something like $2 million. It was put into building out this studio for students in the school. I'll make the you gotta go see it. It's unbelievable. So a student asked me an amazing question. So the student said, "Well, Dr. Yates, how do you measure your own instinct in making a decision versus those of someone that may be an elder or somebody around you that's older?" I thought that was a great question. That's a fair question. And I had to think about it for a moment before I answered because I 100% believe you should trust your instinct. But what I lamented to the young man was, but there's a difference between 18-year-old instincts and instinct of wisdom that have went through these things already. And as an 18-year-old or whatever age, you have to be willing to listen to the advice that's being offered and not listen to it in the lens that I want to do X and this advice may tell me to do Y. And I'm going to go with X, even though I know Y is the right thing to do. So, what I tell young people is that there are ramifications to every decision. I'm not here to talk you to death about it. What I'm here to do is to tell you from real life experiences there that there are one or two decisions that I made when I was 14, 15, 16 years old that did impact my opportunities later on in trying to make it to the NFL 5 or 6 years later. So it's really getting them to think, not the now, think about project out 4 years, project out 5 years. How is that decision going to impact you later on?
Wow. And that's the reason why I always tell people life is all about perspective. And the only way you gain perspective is from experiences. That's how
Yes.
you get to form your perspective. So that's excellent because that's part of, I think, the issue with a lot of our young people and people in general. Sometimes we don't know how to map that thing out. And you look at it through one little lens, it's a real narrow lens as to what you're doing today versus if you do something today, it's going to affect probably next week. It's hard to get someone to think on that level. Now, here's what's funny. Your educational journey, if you don't mind, and I know you're humbled, so I'm going to ask you this.
Just do it.
Please lay out for my young people that's looking at my show
Okay.
and for anybody else in general the educational path that you took and the type of degrees that you have.
Okay. So um I have 6 degrees. And I talked about it a little bit early when I first started, and I may have said it in a way, and you're right. Let me slow it down. Let me say it again. So from St. Peter's University, I received a degree, a bachelor's degree in accounting, and I did a minor in business management. Then at St. Peter's College, now university, I did a double master's degree, which is a master's in business administration and a master's in information systems. So my first four degrees were based off of I wanted to be a CPA accountant and I wanted to own the world. Like that was my goal, right? And then I realized that I really didn't like accounting and corporate America and what it takes to be successful in corporate America isn't really my isn't my it isn't my inner hue. It isn't money isn't what would motivate me to wake up and go get it every day. But if you remember, I did own a formal wear tuxedo shop in Jersey City. That it was a franchise I was able to open through a network and through a connection from a person I played college football with. And what I learned in utilizing those four degrees was that the principles of running a multinational corporation, the same principles of accounting, taxes, auditing, marketing, all those principles, supply and demand, whether it's $1 billion company or my tuxedo shop that I had, those principles are the same. And then I got a job in admissions because I needed to put money into the company versus taking money out. And when I started that job in admissions in 1997, what it did was give me access to education and policy. And once I started to learn about those topics, it 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 lit a fire in me in a different way. So then I started to talk. I started to say, as an admissions counselor, that I want to be a college president. Now let's be clear: there isn't a track from admissions counselor to college president. But that's what I started saying. I want to become a college president. And I just started doing the things and building out a career over about 25 years that's putting me on track to one day become a college president. So to get the PhD was really something I started saying when I was 17 years old. And I saw someone present at Lincoln High School, and he was a doctor. And I just associated what I saw in him, which in hindsight, he was just visible as a black man. And I started saying I wanted to do that. So it's all these different things that was building up to as I became a young adult. And I said, I'm gonna get this PhD. So I went to Seton Hall. And once I secured it, it opened up a lens in life for me that I never imagined for myself. And if I may very quickly say, typically, you know me, you see me, I have a bow tie on. So when I was a youngster, a very young man, I could see an image of a man with a bow tie on in a suit. But it was so foreign to me that I didn't really realize that image I was seeing was me. So that was another reason why I've always wanted to make sure that people who grow up like me, they have to learn the transition from where they are now to how they get to that place. Right. So that's the important part of what I think my ministry is, if you will. And that's why education and the degrees that I have are so important to me. And that's why I went back to get the certificate in diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I want to continue to be able to be that roadmap. One of my godsons called me the cheat code. He's about 20 years younger than me, and he's making some of these stats. And so he's thinking, all right, I see at this age you were doing this, this, and this. All right, I'm on path. And so that's how I've been able to really utilize education as really a marker for where I want to go in life, how I want to do it, why it's important, and then also be able to make sure that young people can see that if I could do it, they have no choice but to do it.
Listen, man, there's always, as you know, a method to my madness. So, and the reason why I wanted it to be broken down exactly like that, because I wanted people to understand path and journey is the same thing.
Yes.
So they have to really understand what that path and what that journey looks like for someone who's done it.
Yes.
Right. And a lot of time when I see successful people in my industries, they talk about the grandiose success, but they don't talk about the path or the journey.
Yes.
And that's why having you on my show is so important, because I know, as you just did, thank you, because you don't mind giving the nuggets about the path and the journey and the how to.
Definitely.
Right. That's so important. Listen, I have a few minutes here. I want to ask
Yes.
you. So when a
Uh-huh.
young person comes to you, or person in general, when they ask you, Dr. Yates, man, listen, I need an idea. I have an idea. I just don't
Uh-huh.
know how to get to that destination just yet. How could I go about getting myself together? How could I go about, getting on track to do whatever it is I want to do? What advice would you give these young people or people in general that's trying to get themselves on track?
Sure. So I am open to have a conversation with anyone. I'm on LinkedIn. I get messaged all the time for someone that will ask me about how do I get into higher education? How do I change jobs? How do I move from A to B? I answer every one of them. I really do. And I think it's important to build a network. And I think it's important to make sure that you ask questions. Put yourself in a position or in a sphere where you have access to folks who are beyond or in the area where you see yourself. So LinkedIn is a great environment because you can actually message the dean of a university, a college president, a vice president at a corporation. You can message them and let them know, ask for internship opportunity. You'll be surprised how many times that you contact an entity and pose a question and the response that you will get back. Some people in life, like we are human. And in so many ways, when you get moving in life, it is humbling for someone to take the time and send a message and pose a question. So I feel an obligation to make sure that I answer when I'm called upon. But the number one thing is I give my card to people all the time. And you'll be surprised if I give out 100 cards, I may get 10 people who actually send me a message, send me an email, contact me. I say it to people all the time. I'm very easy to find. If you Google me, you can find speeches, you can find my LinkedIn information, contact. It's there. It's easy. Utilize it. And that's what I do to this day. And I will tell you something, and this is for your audience to really know how much you've impacted my life. And it's interesting about this conversation. This is a nice bow because I know you got to wrap up. I utilized you to help me with my first resume when I was finished college. And I know I told you that before. But I asked you. I knew you had started this company. I knew the different things you were doing. I took the time and I asked. And what did you do? You answered and you opened up your Rolodex and you said, you know what, let's get to work. What is it you're trying to do? You're trying to make it here? I got it. You're trying to make it here? I got it. So again, what I've been able to do is literally I'm following your playbook. But that playbook is to make sure that you build a strong network. Because I've been told your net worth is connected to your network.
Absolutely. Dr. Yates, man, listen, brother. Not only I'm going to have you back on my show,
I look
and
forward to it.
you and I will sit down and work on a series
Let's do it.
because this information is needed, and I think, matter of fact, I know it's needed, and we need to structure it out, map it out, and do
Yes.
what we need to do to get it going, man. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. Thank you so much. Listen, everybody, this is Dr. Latoro Yates. This man, as you've heard, is one of the mover and shakers in a much needed, where we're going right now in our society. This has his hand on the pulse. And we need more of you, my good brother. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. And keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing. You've always been that light. And I feel honored to be able to march and walk in that light, in that jet stream, if you will, because we are empowering the next generation. And they know that there are people in our community that are moving in the right direction, and there is a direction out. And we both show that every day of our lives. So I truly appreciate you. And I'm gonna keep running. I'm letting you know I'm gonna keep running. You can believe that.
What's up? Thank you, my brother. I'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Thank you. Have a great day.
Too. Peace.